Formed at the crossroads between British social realism and horror, we have identified a new genre that has recently emerged from the British horror scene: social unrealism. Whilst social unrealism shares many semantic elements with the British social realist tradition, a genre that focuses on representing the unrepresented through a visual lens committed to framing the lives of the real within their real environment. Where it decidedly becomes something new is through its mixing with generic tropes of horror and its exploration of social issues, in a reality that is almost our own, but not quite. We have identified a provisional corpus of social unrealist films, which will be explored by using genre theory to uncover the semantic and syntactic elements that bind these films together. In order to anchor this discussion, however, this essay will primarily focus on Saint Maud, which we have identified as a clear focal point for social unrealism. One of the genre's most prominent semantic elements is its use of locations. Explaining in an interview for the Yorkshire Post, director Rose Glass explored coastal locations for her film in Wales and of her native Essex, before finally settling on Scarborough. She notes how the arcades and neon lights of the Yorkshire town created an edgy and intimidating environment, one in which Maud appears lost among the nostalgic Technicolor. Additionally, the northern setting of St Maud links back to social realism's use of setting. The psychogeography of the majority of working-class realist films of the 80s is in the north of England, a territory ravaged by the destructive legislation of Thatcher's government. With its shots of dingy back streets, dimly lit pubs and washed-out colours, St Maud's employment of locations within Scarborough aids in constructing the film's unsettling undertone, alongside the weaving of northern working-class struggle into the film's psychogeography. Wherever Maud goes, the locations she encounters heighten her isolation. Take this windy waterside shot. High contrast light and shadows conceal Maud, while the background dwarfs her under the grey sky and looming hillside. St Maud's employment of Yorkshire's dark and brooding coast taps into the region's Gothic history, with harrowing descriptions of landscape forming a part of the traditional Gothic novel. Settings such as the sea, sublime mountains, ruined castles, assumed heavily the symbolised and determined meanings directly linked to the complex psychological readings of both character and the narrative. St Maud similarly plays into these Gothic tropes, whilst simultaneously evoking social realist imagery with the use of the slow town setting in the north of England, alongside including common social realist locations such as the pub or the cafe. These settings then not only hold weight when put within a wider intertextual context, but also in the sense that within the narrative they can often act as ambivalent sites for the protagonists. We get the sense that Amanda's house is both a spiritual site and one where she becomes conflicted with her relationship to care. A theme which is emphasised by the image of the hospital that occurs throughout the film. Social unrealism takes a unique approach to the concept of othered characters. The notion of the other, particularly the monstrous other, has been a central tenet of horror cinema. Traditionally in horror, the other is found in the villain. Dracula is othered not only for his murderous tendencies, but also his bizarre, animalistic individuality. Social realism approaches the other quite differently, treating it as an avenue through which to explore marginalised characters. One way this is done in social realist films, particularly those of proponent Ken Loach, is by displaying protagonists as othered by the system to illustrate the genre's thematic concerns of systemic cruelty and inhumane treatment of ordinary citizens. In St Maud, Maud's otherness due to her lower class is exemplified during her wealthy employer Amanda's birthday party. Maud is ordered around and then stands alone sinisterly in the doorway, physically and mentally distanced from the others. Here, one can observe how the othering of MAUD, in line with social realism's focus on class disparity, aids St. Maud in its hybridising of genres, whilst acting as a catalyst for MAUD's horrific demise. In social unrealism, the other is never monstrous for monstrous sake. Instead, mirroring social realism, it is a vessel through which to explore individuals' problems within a wider social structure. MAUD experiences surplus repression due to demanding pressures of the NHS. This may be said to be a filmic social realist take on the lack of support given to the working class medical professional, and how extreme abuse and neglect can create society's monsters. MAUD does not follow the typical antichrist trope as discussed in Wood's explanation of Hollywood horror. Rather, after a mental break following the pressure of working for the NHS, she finds faith. The use of the Welsh language in the place of a saviour adds to Maud's figure as a martyr, perhaps a national martyr. Dekker describes the anti-Americanisation of British horror being found in the reclamation and reminder of British social history and borders. Class and British politics are commented on in other genre-merging films, such as Assault, His House, and Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead, for example, can be said to recreate the American parody genre of comedy horror, fitting in a social realist representation of the working class English-British experience. This links to the social realist depiction, which defies any hegemonic view of the English language by deliberately eschewing the Queen's English and embracing regional dialects and accents. This focus on the regional working classes is not only present in social unrealism's common themes of labour and health, but also in its protagonists and how they are connected to the film's physical and metaphorical monsters.